everyone. I'm Alyce Tzue. I'm here with the brilliant Tim Reckart. We're going to talk a bit about his Oscar-nominated short film called Head Over Heels.
Hi, Alyce. Great to be here with you.
I would love to talk a bit more about like CG versus stop motion, everything. Stop motion is so much work. Could you tell me a little bit about the process for you?
Personally, I love the process of stop motion because even though, it is sort of notoriously slow and work intensive in the animation process, that process of animating one frame at a time straight ahead, actually, as an animator, it kind of puts you there with the characters, I think a little bit more than in CG animation or drawn animation. And particularly in the case of Head Over Heels, right towards the end of the movie when they're finally getting to hug each other. I've been working with these puppets for the last 3 or 4 months of animating. Again, the whole thing took 15 months for us for 10 minutes of a film. It's just, that's what animation is, But by the end of that process, I'm finally getting these puppets together, and just the animation of the husband grabbing the wife like that, I was actually tearing up on the stage, because there I am, like living that moment in real time. And that moment that's just, a couple seconds on screen for me is lasting a whole hour, and I'm just getting to live in that moment. So it's one of the things I love about stop motion is that emotional connection to the characters.
I love how different mediums, as you mentioned, kind of touch you in different ways. I know that there is more frequently a practice to not use dialogue in shorts. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that choice and kind of talk a little bit about the story as well and the inspiration behind that.
This idea came to me from looking at a Rembrandt painting called The Philosopher in Meditation, where you see this spiral staircase going up, and you see both the top of the staircase and the underside. On the underside, it's scalloped with steps, just like the top is. And so it occurred to me that you could have two characters kind of walking along one spiral staircase, and that was kind of the genesis. It definitely would be easier in certain ways to tell that story with dialogue and to show a couple bickering or sort of like being dismissive of each other. But it just felt like we're saying so much about the world of this movie and about the relationship between the characters with this kind of poetic image that it's just part of the tone of this movie to see how much we can do just using those tools. There is just a part of human nature that wants to demonize the people who disagree with us. And, at the time I found myself in a long distance relationship with a girlfriend who disagreed with me politically, disagreed with me religiously. But I still wanted to make the relationship work. And fast forward 4 years from then, and we got married. So she's now my wife. We've got 2 kids. It all worked out. And the movie, in a lot of ways, was inspired by that experience of like this idea that when you don't agree which way is up, it's kind of ultimately one way to put it. When you don't agree which way is up, that doesn't mean that you have to live apart, right? All it means is that it's not easy. But not easy doesn't mean that it's not possible. It just takes work and effort is a product of love. And really, love is more than a feeling. Love is the choice to go out of your way to do something for somebody. So whether or not you're feeling that love, you always have the option to overcome yourself and do it anyway.
You were just mentioning that you and your wife don't necessarily agree on religious views. I know that your faith has played an important role in your work. I'm wondering how that informed the specific short Head Over Heels, but also how that helps you and informs you as an artist.
I'm Catholic, and I always wanted to be a Catholic filmmaker, but that doesn't necessarily mean making films about the Christian faith. And it's ironic that I'm saying this because in the end, the first feature film that I directed was an adaptation of the Nativity story. But my interest has always been in telling stories that kind of tune into kind of universal truths about human nature and human relationships. And I think that speaks to people of faith and to people who aren't believers. Nevertheless, being a person of faith does kind of point my gaze in certain directions. And I think for me with Head Over Heels, I guess it was looking at our American culture of romance and feeling like there is a lot of focus on the falling in love, but there's really not a lot of focus on what comes after that. And that means we're just looking at the tip of the iceberg, but there's a whole beautiful iceberg beneath the surface that no one's dealing with. And as a Christian, the message there is really that love takes sacrifice, and it's not something that only Christians know. Everyone who has tried to live out a long-term relationship knows that love takes sacrifice. But of course, we Christians see the cross as the ultimate symbol of that. So for me, it's definitely connecting to these themes of love in sacrifice.
Wow, that's so beautiful. Yeah, especially now realizing that love is tough, you know. Well, thanks so much, Tim. I loved having this discussion with you. It's been so inspiring to both me and I'm sure the audience as well.
Thank you, Alyce. It's been so awesome having this chat with you, and I'm so glad to meet you. I'm grateful to Windwriter for introducing us.
Thanks, Tim.